All right, today I'm talking to you about synthesis, the thesis of sin. Probably one of the best things to do with music production because it's so creative and you basically make the sounds that you want to make. I'm going to be talking to you about subtractive synthesis. I know you would have gone over this in your community session, but I'm going to show you two examples of this. First one, Moog Minotaur. This is a company called Moog or Moog, depending on where you are in the world. And this is a basic subtractive bass synthesizer module. Minotaur analog bass synthesizer, it says on it. This is a 2 oscillator. So we have 2 oscillators here. The oscillator waveforms, you can pick between saw wave and square wave. That's it. There's no extra frilliness. Volumes for each of those. You have a tune for VCO2. So oscillator 2, you have a tuning for. Obviously oscillator 1, you don't need a tuning for because you'll just play the note, and whatever MIDI note you send it, it will play that note. But then you can offset the pitch of VCO2 with the VCO2 pitch. You then have a filter section where you have the cutoff knob, very important, but then you also have a resonance, and then you have an envelope amount, which brings us down to the envelopes. So here we have the filter envelope. So we have an attack, decay, and then sustain. This is kind of like a decay release thing. And then at the bottom, a amplifier envelope. So attack, decay, stroke release, depending on whether you've got it on or not, and sustain. And that's it, a glide, overall volume. At the bottom here, we have the modulation section. This is the LFO. It has one LFO. You can change the shape by doing some funky shift things, but it has an LFO rate, so the speed of the LFO, and then where you can send it to. You can only send it to 2 places. You can only send it to the VCO pitch, so the pitch of oscillator 1 and 2, or the LFO of the filter. Basic, very basic. On the back, audio in and out, headphones, pitch CV, filter CV, volume CV, and gate if you want to hook it up to modular equipment. And then obviously like MIDI in and stuff like that, USB. But this is a very basic subtractive synthesizer. It's great. It's one knob per function. There's no menus, menu diving, and it makes really thick bass lines and great lead sounds, especially if you hook it up to things like this. Bam. Guitar pedals. These are stereo pedals, but this is a mono synth. So what you can basically do is put this synth in mono, but then output it into stereo. I can then have reverb and delay and create soundscapes and stuff. Next, we have modular synthesis. Now, this is still subtractive synth. This is still a subtractive synth. However, see these little patch points and it's got like wires coming out of it? You decide where you want certain sounds to go and certain elements to go. You can modulate anything with anything as long as it has a hole coming out of it and going into it. For instance, here, this is one oscillator here and another oscillator here. Within this oscillator, I've got the pitch of that oscillator, the width of that oscillator, but then also I've got all of these wave shape outputs. I could plug one of these out to the mixer, or I could use one of these wave shapes as a modulator for something else. For instance, I could take a lead and take the saw wave, which is a continuous pitch, it's modulating, it's constantly oscillating, and plug that into the filter, which would now make the filter open and close to however much I want it with this control here at the rate of that oscillator. I could turn the pitch of this one down so low that it works like a LFO again. Let me unplug that before I ruin what I had patched. This is kind of the next level in terms of being able to gain the weirdest noises possible. You can kind of make any noise ever with a comprehensive modular setup. Now this is, again, on the basis of it, subtractive. However, you can move on to things like FM, frequency modulation, by modulating, taking the output of one frequency and putting it into the pitch of another, and so on. So this modular synthesis takes it to the next level. Next, over here, I can't be bothered to unplug it, but the one on the left here, that one, that is an FM synthesizer. That is basically frequency modulation. So it works completely different to subtractive. You're basically modulating the frequency of one oscillator with the pitch of another oscillator. Moving on. The big one over there, that is a subtractive synth. However, you can do linear FM and everything. That's the most comprehensive synth that I've ever owned. It's very good. It has 4 oscillators. It has 4 LFOs. It has 4 delays. It has a sequencer. It has 2 filters, dual. It can be run in series or parallel. It has 5 envelopes, one dedicated to amplitude, and then 2 other external envelopes. But remember, you have 2 filters, so you have 2 filters for the envelopes, 5 in total. Distortions, modularness in the back with CV, very comprehensive synthesizer. However, I could still make good sounds on the small one. You don't need to have huge ones. Now, soft synths, things like Massive, Serum, and other ones, they're still really good. Doesn't mean analog is better. Analog is more tactile. It doesn't necessarily sound better because that's completely subjective. It depends on what you like the sound of. It's what your opinion of that sound is. These are just more tactile than a soft synth. A soft synth, a VST or an AU unit, something like Massive or Serum, is with a mouse. It's not very tactile unless you've got it hooked up to a MIDI controller. This, however, if I want to change the noise of something, I can turn it right there and then. I've got 2 hands, so I could do 2 things at once, for instance. A lot more tactile, and you kind of commit to a sound. Once you've got a sound in this, you kind of commit to it. Some of them will let you save patches on, like that will let you save patches. This will sort of, I mean, it does, but it's just very weird, and it's very hard to then go through those patches because there's no screen to tell you what you're on. That one, you're not saving anything on that. That's, once you've undone it, that's it. And that's kind of the beauty of it. So we've got a small module for bass synthesis, the all-round every sound that I could ever want to make with that one, with all the modulations and the different envelopes and LFOs and delays and 4 oscillators and stuff. And then just the weird one, packed in with these. So yeah, synthesis, effects, make noise.